I'm at a total loss. And I know this guy didn't pick this up from listening to me. But I'm still not sure who he's talking about. Here's the rest of it, just for the heck of it.
You have to be ready to face sexual stuff. You have to be ready to face these sexual questions. And, you have to be ready and want to do this more than anything.
Well, that sounds like he heard somebody giving advice to future candidates. If somebody's going to say you're sexually harassed, you got to be ready for it. And you got to have... I did not say this. You still think he's talking about me there. How can you? You were here yesterday, and you know that I didn't say any of that. Bannon's talking like that, but I'm not. And he's getting mad at me for not ripping into Bannon? I guess. Well, obviously he's projecting into what he wants. Everybody wants me on their team. I understand that. And since what I said yesterday didn't make this guy think I'm on his team, I must be on Bannon's team. I'm having to search the deep, dark crevices of my memory for what I said about this Alabama thing yesterday. But, when I was talking about it, yes... That's what it was. People were crabby blaming me because I didn't endorse more and because I didn't tell people to go out there and vote for the guy. And I didn't. That's right. They were blaming me. Exactly right. Oh, well. Let me get back to the phones. Maybe people on the phone, common sense, can unravel me from all of this. Bob in Coronado, California. Glad you waited, sir. What's happening?
Hi, Rush. I'm maximally frustrated. It all relates to the last year. I had to listen daily about the Russians and collusion. And now, as you mentioned briefly a few minutes ago, that we're starting to find out piece by piece that it appears that the Hillary and the Democratic DNC colluded with the Russians. It appears that they colluded with the FBI. And I don't think it's a big stretch, which to me is just frightening as can be, that the FBI may have colluded through fusion GPS with the Russians.
Exactly. If what we're learning because of these texts and what our common sense tells us, it is the FBI meddling in the election. It's the FBI and the Department of Justice coordinating with the Clinton campaign. And that's the meddling. And if you want to say they meddled with the dossier, well, the dossier has roots to Russians because Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier, claims that Russians helped him source it. So the collusion here, and in all these texts that we're learning from Strzok to Lisa Page, are indicating FBI meddling in the 2016 election. How else do you interpret Strzok wishing for an insurance policy in case Trump wins? And now these clowns are part of the investigation of collusion between Trump and Russia, of which there isn't any, no evidence whatsoever. And now they're moving on to Trump obstructing justice by firing Comey and what have you. That's what this is. The insurance policy is this newfangled turd of an investigation that we're being made to sit through after a year of being told that Trump colluded with the Russians. People's lives are being destroyed over this. People's livings, the way they earn a living is being destroyed and trashed over all of this because a bunch of liberals have their noses out of joint that Hillary lost despite their help.
And Rush, I might add that besides the fact that Peter Strzok would be one horrible name to have in junior high school, I'm shocked that the swamp that votes 96% Dem in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia, that they now will investigate themselves. And I think this investigation should come from somewhere else, maybe North Dakota branch of the FBI. But to allow the Washington, D.C. FBI, when you see where their leadership, the fourth and fifth people, where they stand and who they're married to, it can't go on like this. This is a national emergency. I've never seen anything like it. It makes Watergate pale by comparison.
Watergate, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood compared to this. But you hit on something. You say the South Dakota FBI. I'd take the Fargo branch. But if there is one, there is on the TV show. But stop and think of this. So, okay, so here we have Trump is doing his job, and he fires Comey and this or that and the other thing, and then there's all these phony. Think of the Sessions recusal, which was totally unnecessary. So he talked to the Russian ambassador. Big whoop. Everybody did. But only under the false well, Trump colluded with the Russians, stole the election, so therefore anybody talking with the Russian might be involved in that. What a hoax. But this is another thing that bothers me. Just in general, not specific to this, is the idea that in Washington, in the normal ebb and flow, in the House and in the Senate, we don't have honest people who can conduct an integrity investigation. No, we need a special counsel. We always need somebody who's not tied to anything, supposedly. The members of the House and the various committees there, the members of the Senate, various committees there, they just apparently don't have the integrity and the reputations to do these investigations. No, we've got to go out and get a special counsel. And when we do that, what do they tell us? The special counsel is beyond reproach. The special counsel is a man of impeccable integrity and sophistication and refinement and is untainted by anything because the special counsel is not in Congress. The special counsel may be a lawyer from a lobbying firm on K Street, or he may be from a white shoe law firm in Manhattan or Boston. But whatever he is and wherever he comes from, he is the impeccable example of the best we've got. So that's the premise under which all this crap happens. If I'm a member of Congress, if I'm a member of the House, member of the Senate, I got to get ticked off when I'm said to be, by association, unqualified to do one of these investigations. We need a special counsel. We need an independent prosecutor. Well, what do we have? We have an independent prosecutor with 16 lawyers that literally despise Donald Trump. And we're licking Hillary's back all the way through the campaign, loving her, depending on her. Where the hell is the integrity here? Where are the impeccable, unassailable credentials? Where is the sophistication? I mean, look at all the stuff that's foisted upon us. And so it starts out with the belief that this special counsel is untainted and cannot be tainted because this special counsel is indeed special. Why, this special counsel is not tied to any particular event being investigated, is not a particular partisan. Look at all this crap they tell us. It's not a nonpartisan in that town. And now we find out, because of these texts, that it's the FBI and not the Russians who have been meddling in the 2016 election before it happened and after it happened. And these texts cement this premise as concise and powerful as it can be. This headline: explosive texts point to FBI, not Russian meddling in 2016 election. Investors Business Daily says for 18 months, it's a year and a half, the FBI has been fixated on determining whether Trump worked with Russia to influence the 2016 election. But text exchanges between top FBI agents suggest you should be looking in the mirror. The text messages between Strzok and Lisa Page, which have been made public earlier this week, provide a rare, illuminating window into just how rabidly partisan, putatively nonpartisan law enforcement officials can be. In the exchanges, they call Trump an idiot, a loathsome human, an enormous douche. This man cannot be president, quote unquote. And when they weren't berating Trump, they were praising Cruella Pantsuit. In one text, Strzok said, God, Hillary should win by 100 million to nothing. In another text, he said, a lot of people are holding their breath, hoping about Clinton. We are being played, my friends, like we haven't been played in my life on this one. This is Watergate is chump change compared to what. None of this is based on what really happened. I don't know how else to say it. I have to take a break now. We'll be back in just a second. What am I being... You didn't upset me. Cookie's all upset that I don't understand the soundbite from this Bender guy. She sent me a note saying that she thinks Bender in the last half of the bite's talking about... What did she say? Second half of the bite is describing Bannon, not me. Maybe I can't tell. But now she sent me a text, by the way, not on a ham radio frequency. She sent me a text. She's sorry she upset me. You didn't upset me. People that don't know how to communicate upset me. Everything's upsetting me today. Newt Gingrich, who used to be outwardly optimistic, we were on the cusp of a new age, is now pessimistic about 2018 and thinks it could all be over. I want to share with you some of the notes that he's jotted down about this when we get back. And one other thing I'm going to try. So sit tight. We'll be right back. Okay, greetings and welcome back. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network and Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Let's see what... grab soundbite number 18. I need some backup on this. We got to hear from Trey Gowdy. This was last night on Fox News. He was asked, this is a text message from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page about the meeting in Andrew McCabe's office. It would help everybody to understand that at the time, he said that he was investigating Hillary Clinton to decide whether they were going to pursue charges against her.
Why 3 FBI agents are discussing politics in the deputy director's office, because you're not supposed to discuss politics on federal ground, and FBI agents aren't supposed to engage in politics for Hatch Act reasons. The notion that 3 bureau agents would be conspiring or plotting on how to handle the outcome of a presidential election is the opposite of what you want in an objective, dispassionate, neutral FBI. It is incredibly problematic. Remember, Jim Comey gets very sanctimonious when you talk to him about a politicized FBI. Very sanctimonious. Well, guess what? In his deputy director's office, they were discussing how to prevent one candidate from becoming president of the United States. It doesn't get any more political than that.
Well, exactly. But, I mean, that doesn't even get close to what it really is and means. By the way, I just got a note. Marco Rubio says he is a no on the tax bill unless a tax credit for the working poor is expanded. This is from the Hill.com. So while everybody's wondering whether or not McCain will be able to show up and whether Thad Cochran will be able to show up, Marco Rubio pops up and says he's a no on this thing unless they expand the tax credit for the working poor. Okay. All right. Well, we'll deal with that as it happens and as it unfolds. Remember his drive-by media sources? Yeah, it could be all wet. I also have a note here, Mr. Snerdley, that this whole thing about Paul Ryan leaving at the Politico is wrong. He's not going anywhere. And it's dead wrong. And they got a whole cover story like a magazine. It was his dream to come here and see tax cuts, and he was doing what he was born to do, and now he can't wait to leave. Some such thing as headline as that. And I just got a quick note. I can't tell you from who. Doesn't matter. That he's not leaving. His office has denied it, too. Well, that doesn't mean anything either. We always rely on outside sources. All right, so Mr. Newt posted this on Facebook yesterday. The other thing I'm thinking about doing, I was perusing the Drudge Report last night, and the headlines, I was just overcome by it. So I printed it out. I'm gonna run through some of this headline by headline and share with you my take on it. But here are 3 headlines from the Drudge Report that set up the Newt Gingrich Facebook post. Democrats predict wave election, and they are. The Democrats think 2018 is in the bag and that they're going to win something like 60 seats in the House. It's a wave. They're not going to lose any ground in the Senate. They may take the Senate. They're definitely taking the House back. This is what they think. The next headline, Schumer on the march. The next headline, Ted Cruz in trouble? Question mark. So Newt posts the following on his Facebook page, and it's a huge warning for the Republicans. Republicans lost yesterday in Alabama Senate race for the first time in 25 years. Republicans lost the Virginia governorship last month, despite Ed Gillespie getting more votes than any Republican gubernatorial candidate in Virginia's history. Republicans also lost the 14 House of Delegate seats in Virginia, and 4 races are still being recounted, enough for Republicans to possibly lose control of the House of Delegates in Virginia for the first time in 17 years. In New Jersey, an unpopular Republican governor doomed the GOP candidate to a decisive defeat with only 42% of the vote. Despite this outcome, legislative elections were essentially a draw. The 538.com website estimates the current generic ballot is now 47.2% Democrat, 37.5% Republican. If it stabilizes at that level, meaning if it holds, 2018 will be a disaster for Republicans. It was 6 months ago, 9 months ago. Newt Gingrich was on a high that was breathtaking to see. Newt, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, but all kinds of people were on a high. Trump had won. It was a new day. We're going to tell the establishment what is and what for, and we're going to start draining the swamp. And it was very, very heady days. And now, just a few months later, 538.com estimates the current generic ballot 47.2% Democrat, 37.5% Republican. If that holds, 2018 is a disaster for Republicans. And he adds to it. He says, you Republicans who take comfort from the special elections in the House that the Republicans won, there were 5 of them, should look carefully at the details. It's not as good as you think. Every special election the GOP has won since the 2016 elections has involved districts which are either strongly Republican or voted for President Trump. Despite massive spending by various Republican groups, these victories have all been smaller than the 2016 margins in the same districts. In both Alabama and Virginia, the Democrats were energized, and they turned out. Meanwhile, Republicans are divided. Alabama was a GOP civil war. Many Republicans are unhappy with their leaders in Washington, and independents are being alienated by both the president and congressional Republicans. As a first step back from the edge of disaster, Republicans must pass tax cuts by the end of this year and continue economic growth. Now let me pause here and remind you. Right before the program started today, a little over 2 hours ago, CNN ran a poll that said, and I don't know what the poll was, I don't remember, only 26% of the American people are in favor of the Republican tax cuts. 70% oppose. There are 4% that don't care, don't know. 70% opposed to, is it tax cuts or Republican tax cuts? See, that's an important distinction. I think it's Republican tax cuts that was polled. Did you ever think, and again, it's a drive-by media poll, so it's questionable. It's not the only one, it's just the worst. But there are a lot of other polls that show that there is not majority support in the country for tax cuts. Did you ever think you would see that